Welcome to Campus Conversations, brought to you by UCL Student Success Team, your go-to podcast for all things student life at University College London. On today's episode, our topic is pop culture. And to spice things up, we have some topic-related conversations in the hat that we'll pick out and discuss. My name is Inara, and I'm a second-year History, Politics and Economics student at UCLCs.
I'm Kira, and I'm a second-year Biomedical Engineering student.
And my name's Luther. I'm not a student here. I work in the Student Success Team. I'm one of two managers within the team, and we've brought this podcast together to get further insight into student life.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So how do you feel about the role of cancel culture in holding public figures accountable? Has it gone too far or not far enough?
I feel like Nara's got a lot.
Yeah, when I just heard cancel culture, I was like, oh yeah, ding, ding, ding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes it can be too much. Like, you have to think about considerations with online bullying. Like, even though a celebrity is a public figure and it's hard to humanize them at times, they are still a person at the end of the day. So I definitely think cancel culture can go a bit too far in a sense online. Yeah.
I think it's also valuable to actually discuss like what cancel culture actually is. And so what I'm aware of is that cancel culture is, the aim of that is to hold an individual, usually of celebrity status, accountable if they've done something that's considered wrong. And usually that's based on like moral grounds. And what I'm aware of and what I've seen on the internet is that people tend to diverge away from that initial aim, and instead it turns into online harassment, basically.
Yeah, there's a fine line between holding someone to account and then whether they deserve to be held to account as well as another one, and then just the cancel culture.
All right, let me ask you, if either of you, you don't have to say who,
Okay.
but have you ever cancelled anybody?
Probably like organisations.
Interesting.
So like boycotting, that could be seen as cancelling in a sense, or maybe like cancelling a certain club in like London, or not going to a certain place because of something that's happened. So yeah, places more so than people, just because I don't really agree with cancelling like people in a sense. Yeah,
and like if people or organisations, when I say people, I'm talking more about people of like celebrity status. If they do something that doesn't align with my own values, then that's when I tend to be like, ooh.
just drop them into the sea. Yeah.
But I do think it's really important for people to have a critical eye on cancel culture, because I think it's so easy to, kind of fall into cancel culture, just holding someone accountable, and that's how people take it so far, because they don't actually think about it before they start going into rather extreme, approaches to it.
So interesting you mention organisations.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel no way about cancelling or not supporting an organisation, but for some reason, well, not for some reason, there's empathy there for human beings. And if they've done something wrong, a lot of the time, I remember years ago, I won't say the name, but a celebrity got cancelled for something they had done like 20 years previously when they were a teenager. And the empathy within me at that time thought, they were 15. They said something disrespectful, but it's 20 years removed from that. How much have they changed? I was going through the motions of thinking, trying to be empathetic, whereas when it comes to organisations and institutions, I've got a lot less tolerance, I suppose, for... Is that the same for both of you?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, if you're an organisation or a company, you have a board of directors. So you've intentionally hired a certain demographic for your board of directors, and then you've intentionally hired a certain amount of people for your social media. You've intentionally hired an entire HR team that looks the same. I mean, like the easiest example that comes to mind is like makeup companies. So especially like 2016 peak YouTube makeup era, and there would be entire companies that their darkest shade wouldn't even like sort of fit like a mixed ethnicity person.
Yeah.
And they would only support influencers that were of a certain look, and they would only create makeup for people of a certain look. Things like that. I mean, I totally agree with cancelling those organisations.
On my social media, for instance, I get there's this one specific influencer who tries on the darkest shades.
Yes,
Yeah.
I follow
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, I love it so much,
Yeah.
and I think what she's doing is really important because, you know, her aim is to promote inclusivity and diversity, but a lot of these companies just aren't really doing that, and she's essentially holding them accountable. But what really annoys me is that she's essentially been cancelled on social media because people are like, you're basically nitpicking at this point, like just get something that is your own shade. But no one is providing her shade.
It's interesting you mention that, because I guess whenever somebody does get cancelled, there's going to be a group of people who either feel they shouldn't have been or are upset by their cancellation. Have you had anybody who's been cancelled that you've just mentioned one, that you felt like shouldn't have been? And again, don't need to say names.
I mean, there's a few musicians that come to mind.
Okay.
That
I know who you're thinking
I
of.
still listen. No, not that one. Not that one.
I'm
Not the
joking.
one that you guys instinct. Not that one.
Okay.
Definitely not. There's like tapes of that, so no. But like the other one where it's like just sort of like there's just testimonies of people, then that makes me feel more like there's some musicians where I'm like, okay, love your music, but I have to cancel you. There's like concrete evidence of what you've been doing, and that's
Yeah.
wrong. Whereas like with others, it's just like sort of a speculation, or it's like a debate in general about them. I mean, speaking in our context as students, yes, especially in first year, there were so many people that would get cancelled. So like, but cancelled for the right reasons. I wouldn't even use cancel as that word because there were some people who were just, I mean, you could only just describe them as dangerous personalities, honestly. And then you'd see like a post on Instagram or a Snapchat story, and it'd be like, this is this guy, he has done XYZ, or this person, not necessarily a guy, they've done XYZ, stay away. Or you would cancel someone for being like a particularly bad flatmate or something like that. So you see people being cancelled a lot. Like,
It's quite relevant in student life as well. So,
Yeah.
but in just different ways, ways that you probably don't expect.
cancelling someone's module because they take it too long to mark essays. Like you get things from second years and third years, and you'll be in the common room and like looking at your module options, and they'll be like, don't do that module because they aren't the best lecturer, or don't do that module because the exams are ridiculously hard and they're not related to what you'll learn in class. That saved me from a few modules, I have to say, but that's also how like teaching staff can get cancelled in that sense. But I wouldn't I think like we need to distinguish somebody that's done like clearly bad things, that needs to be an awareness being raised about that, and then cancel culture just being a general like thing. There's two different things, I think. Okay, this one is like staring at me. Ooh, okay. Is it better to stay informed with the news despite exposing yourself to issues and topics that are disturbing/challenging, or is it preferable to switch off from negative feeds and prioritise your own health and well-being?
I like to stay informed as much as I can because I feel like I don't want to feel like I can't. I always want to help, basically. And through educating myself, I feel like I am helping them because then I can, you know, take certain actions to support, you know, whatever's going on. I low-key am a really empathetic person. And so whenever I do see all these things going on and I consume this media daily, I do tend to find myself kind of feeling really low afterwards.
I'm a politics student. Free media is a right. There are people in the world that wish that they had access to media the way that we did. So I always frame it in that sense. So even if it is exhausting, I recognise that it's a right and a privilege that I might not have in the future. Say the government was to change, or say I was to move to a different country and it was, you know, it was dictatorship or so and so. So I think it's 100% important to tune in. It's better to know what's going on than to tune in every 3 months and be caught off guard as to how the world has developed whilst you've been in your blanket or under the veil.
Do you still feel that way regardless of the personal impact it might have on you?
Yeah, it is like bumming out, but I feel, again, when you frame it in a sense that it's a privilege to be able to have so much media to consume, to be able to like be at university and research with so many articles or different media sources, I'm like, okay, there are a lot of women in the world that cannot do that right now, especially like you think of it as a woman, and there's, you know, obvious examples of countries not to mention. So it offsets being able to be educated is yeah.
I think recognizing consuming this media as a privilege is like such an important approach, because there are people who really wish that they could have access to all these things. I do think that there is a balance though. You should definitely stay up to date as much as you can, but to the point where it becomes detrimental to your own mental health, I think it's okay to step back for a bit, but also, you know, make sure that you do stay on top of things at the same time.
I do think there is a balance to be struck. I remember one time probably about a month or two ago, like as soon as I woke up, I was on Instagram and just seeing these like horrific images.
Yeah.
And I was glued for a good 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And the rest of my day was just completely destroyed. And, you know, in the grand context of things, my day being destroyed isn't the worst thing that could happen. But it made me a little bit more mindful in terms of, okay, well, if I am going to engage and stay aware, and especially if I'm going to be shown things that are distressing or difficult to consume, then be mindful of where I'm at personally as well. You know, perhaps don't do that when I've just opened my eyes first thing in the morning, or if I'm feeling particularly vulnerable, or if there's difficult things going on in my life, then just trying to have some degree of management of that, because I think you can do both. I think you can stay aware, up to date, informed, but also protect your own mental health at the same time.
Yeah, no phone policy in the mornings is how I do it.
Okay.
Especially like, because I know Thursdays I have my politics seminar and I have to do all my reading because I have a huge like 5-hour block. I'm like, okay, 30 minutes, like when you wake up, just like you have a book. If you're like really bored, book's there. Really bored, New York Times crossword is there, but you have to get the separate app. So get the New York Times Games app and then you don't get any news notifications. So that's a trick. But yeah, some no
It's really
screen time
useful,
policy.
actually.
Yeah.
I look at content, like I just keep looking, which is something, I'm still trying to find that balance basically, because I feel really passionate about certain issues, and the issues that, well, one of the issues that I'm really passionate about, you do end up seeing horrific images online, but I feel like it's almost my duty to educate myself on this and like realize the extent of how severe these issues are, because through that I feel like I can help.
I think sometimes there's an apathetic view that there's nothing I can do anyway. So there's no point watching it, there's no point kind of engaging with it, because what can I do? But from what it sounds like you're saying is actually, no, I'm informed and I can take some action. However limited or large you think it might be, you can do something, whether it's volunteering, whether it's donating, there's something to be done.
Yeah.
And I think that shows a level of optimism as opposed to a lot of other narratives that I'll hear around like, oh, I just can't be bothered. The world's messed up anyway, there's nothing I can do. So I think it shows a level of kind of optimism that still sounds like it anyway.
I wonder if you've subscribed to any UCL newsletters, like newspapers. So we have on campus quite a few that cover like news around UCL. Some of them are a bit more opinionated pieces than others, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with any. Do you follow any? What's your experience with the UCL newspapers?
Staff member, so I follow like
Yeah.
staff-related news, but it'll be interesting to know what's going on like the student side of things, because I don't receive any of those newsletters. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do, and then, like, because they always sort of run investigative pieces, it's funny because you will, at some point, sort of get approached by one, or you'll get a DM and be like, oh, you know, I saw that you're in this society, do you have anything to say about what's been happening here? And it's funny because with the society at the start of the year, we had a huge, we found ourselves being involved in a huge investigative piece with another group on campus, but it's a bit draining as well, I'd say, with the UCL sort of student news, and you can get quite in your head about it, so it's nice to just definitely switch off.
Do you generally find that students are more on the side of being politically engaged and informed, or is it more to the side of apathy and disengagement from your own experiences?
I mean,
I think it'll be different for you as a politics student.
it's actually, you know what, the INSEAD, everyone knows, like School of Slavonic and Eastern European Studies, if you don't know what I'm talking about. We have a few degree courses, and you can tell someone's personality from like the degree course. So like the sociology and politics people in your seminar, you will be able to tell that you have one of those. And then like with the history, politics, econ, we're not usually not as engaged like by personality. So usually we wouldn't be as sort of. But that's just a generalization, though. It depends. It varies a lot more than you'd think in a sort of humanities-focused department. But how is it for like STEM, though?
The thing is, you actually don't know if someone is engaged in, within current affairs, because sometimes I think it's really common for people to base one's engagement off of whether they're posting on social media, for instance. Like, I post on my stories sometimes about issues that I'm passionate about. And if someone were to not post it, I know this is bad, but part of me would be like, do you know what's going on? I don't actually go up to them and say like, do you know what's going on?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are quick to judge on whether someone's engaged through the amount of content they're posting on their story. So I don't actually know if people on my course are as engaged as I think. But obviously there are a lot of vocal people as well, which I really do appreciate.
That's the thing, you wouldn't know. And like I know a lot of people around me as well are trying to stay not as on social media. So we only check, like maybe we'll only check messages once a day, or we try not to touch Instagram, have time limits. And then I have a friend that he sets his time limit with a passcode that his flatmate has. So I'll be like, should I text you about this like 2 days ago? He's like, I've not had access to Instagram because my flatmate's not been able to unlock it for me. And I'm like, I do like it, and I have been inspired by that, but also the perception and of what that might come across as, politically it's a great way to reach out to people. But I mean, there's lots of in-person ways to stay updated as well, and to show that you're politically engaged, showing up to seminars, there's other ways. So
do you feel that way, that if you don't post online it might be perceived as that you don't care or that you're not engaged?
Yeah.
Before, yes, but now I don't think so. I think like in person, like the people that do know me know that like I am engaged, and I try to attend more things in person now. So even though I'm not as active on social media, I don't feel like that anymore in a sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't agree with it, but I know that that is the case now, and that if you don't post about certain issue on your story, people will just assume that like you don't care. Because I know that people were even reposting this post on their stories saying, "We will never forget your silence on these issues on social media." And you never know, like the people who haven't posted, they might have donated like hundreds of pounds to certain charities and organizations supporting the issues that are going on. So yeah, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, because also my friends know that I'm really passionate about these things, but I don't post all the time about it. But yeah, it's just people are really quick to assume based on your activity on social media.
I'm going to pick another one out of here. Let's have a look what we've got. All right, let me take this one. Okay. So, do reality TV shows, such as dating or real estate shows, have a negative impact on societal values and perceptions of reality, or is it just harmless escapism?
Ooh. You just looked at me. Okay, TLDR, I think that it's not just harmless escapism because...
TLDR, what's the...
Oh, too long didn't read. So you'll see this abbreviation on Reddit, but too long didn't read. So just in short, I stopped watching reality TV like a while ago, and my life has been considerably better. My quality of life has just improved, and I don't compare my life in a sense to how I think it should be. I don't feel like I'm particularly behind in a sense. Like, it's just the less that you engage in that content, I guess you get to appreciate your actual life more. And my mum actually said that, I don't know if you remember, well, you would know the show MTV Cribs, right? And my mum said she had to stop watching that because she like found that she wasn't as grateful for the things that she has. And then, yeah, and I was like, okay, yeah, totally agree. And I just stopped watching reality
Was that like
TV.
a shout to my age? You was like,
Yeah, I was like, do you know MTV
I was
Cribs?
like, what's that mean?
Yeah, I was
I
like,
do know the show.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. I don't know how you feel, but
This is really funny because I was literally watching Love Island yesterday.
oh, yeah.
But with these shows, I think for me personally, I would say it is just harmless escapism because I don't see myself in the people or of the cast members on the show, and so I can separate my reality from their reality, even though their reality is probably not even true because you have to realize that reality TV shows, they're made for entertainment, and so they will like make things more dramatic than they really are. But yeah, I feel like I'm a lot less impressionable than, let's say, children who are watching these shows, because they may see, well, hopefully they're not watching Love Island, but like they may see what's going on and be like, is this what a relationship is meant to look like? And so it does end up providing really unrealistic expectations onto what things should really be. But because I feel like I can just really easily separate myself from the show, and so I just end up really enjoying it and like finding it really funny.
I have to disagree. Like, I don't know, like, there's this really interesting book. I don't know if I'm allowed to shout out books, but there's this book called This Is Not Propaganda, and it's about how anyone can get indoctrinated into cults or sort of online media cults. And so I like to think that everything that you consume does affect you, and it does. Like, even if you don't think it does subconsciously. Like, you're thinking over time, it will like erode at you. And if you look at sort of authoritarian regimes and you think, how does everyone believe in that? Like, how does everyone follow that leader? But it's very slow. It's a very slow process. Most of these leaders were elected. Like, most of these people were democratically elected, and then it just turned into a sort of pattern of media. Slowly, there's only one news outlet that you can read, and now slowly there's only one newspaper that you can read. And it's like we have this illusion of choice. Like, oh yeah, we have like so much. Like, I could not get influenced. Like, I'll just read another news article if I think that this one is a bit biased, or I won't read The Sun, so I'll read The Guardian. But then you find out that they're kind of owned by the same person. You know, I think everyone gets affected by watching things like that, even if it is subconsciously. But I do get what you mean by you can separate yourself. But
I think it's important for me to mention that that's the only episode I've ever watched.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and so like I'm like not into reality TV shows. Yeah. But yeah, my friends and I just like put it on yesterday and we were watching it.
Yeah.
And I think that also definitely contributes as to why my views
We're
are
like,
yeah. Because I was watching the whole time, I was just thinking like, no way, like it's actually like that. But yeah, important for me to mention that is literally the only episode I've ever watched.
Yeah. Important then, yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anybody who knows me knows I love Love is Blind. That's my show. Full disclaimer. And I think for me, it feels like harmless escapism up until a point. There's a point of like maybe if I'm binging or if, I don't know, if I've got time off work and like that's all I'm consuming, then it can feel like it spills over into something else. But in those moments in my life where I'm particularly busy and I'm watching an episode here or there, then it feels like just decompression and just get my mind off whatever has been consuming me during the day. But I do think also that, there is, to your point about maybe there's like an insidious, slower erosion that can happen if you're consuming too much of this content. It's a funny story. I was on the tube the other day, and again, I'm not going to say the company, but there's one of these advertisements for a like food delivery companies that like package the meals and then send them to your door. And the advertisement, it read "Regain Your Balance," and it showed an image of this family carrying their groceries, very happy all together because they've made an order from this company. And then in the background, you can see somebody who didn't make an order, and they're all over the place. They've spilled all their food on the floor. They're in a right state. And I'm looking at the image, and the family hasn't even noticed the woman like on the floor and has paid no attention whatsoever. And I was like, oh, that's a disgust, like what? It's a horrible social value. Like, I'm good, I'm nice, and just that. She's fallen over, and there's no sort of recognition for another person or what they're going through. And I thought to myself, how do we get to this point? And I'm not saying that if you watch, reality TV shows, it's going to get you there, but I think it touches on your point in terms of, maybe there's that slow erosion that you get to this point where you look at certain aspects of society and maybe the lack of morals or values, and maybe there's some connection there between some of the things that we're consuming that we might not even know or perceive or feel as being negative for us. You'll see this advertisement. I'll tell you the name afterwards. You'll see it on the tube.
No, but I definitely agree with you with how you say you are essentially the media you consume. And so, yeah, I think it's just important to have a critical eye on what you are watching. And with reality TV shows, it's just important to remember that everything, like the drama has been emphasized because it's for the purpose of entertainment.
You are the media you consume.
Yeah.
I really agree with that. I've realized a significant increase in my productivity in my day-to-day life when, let's say, my TikTok For You page is lots of videos of people like studying, for instance, or if people are, living these healthy lifestyles, I feel like way more motivated actually to, live a life like that. But that can definitely have negative consequences though, because let's say, you get a lot of videos on your feed that are about people living these not so great lifestyles, then I feel like it's quite easy to, normalize that. And then you end up, I don't know, you kind of end up going into that.
Falling into the abyss or the sunken place from Get
Yeah.
Out. You're just
Oh my
falling in
gosh.
like, yeah, like that.
So are you saying that a lot of whatever's on your feed can influence how you take forward your day and the choices that you make?
Yeah, definitely. So if we go back to your point about the news and how you wake up and then the first thing you see is all this negative news, and you say that affects your day, the rest of your day, to a less severe extent, of course, if you constantly consume negative content, then that will end up eventually subconsciously affecting you. It can lower your mood. Well, that's what I've noticed with myself, at least. And so, yeah, what I've done is if I ever see something that, doesn't align with how I want to live or like my personal views, I just press the not-interested thing.
How do you classify what's negative? Because it just came to me in terms of like fitness videos, for example. For one person, that's going to be super motivating. Let me go to the gym, let me work out, let me do all this. And then for another person, oh my God, look at me, I don't look like they do.
Yeah.
So how do you like distinguish between what's good for you and what isn't? Or is it you just feeling it out?
I think a lot of it is based on my own previous experiences. And I think through that I've kind of learned to distinguish what is good for me and what's not, even though that isn't top notch yet and I don't know if it will ever be. But yeah, basically from my past experiences, I think I'm now able to tell if, like, let's say an exercise video, if that's like way unrealistic for me, or like if it's actually something that, I can live up to.
Curious as well, does this also translate to your studies? I'm touching on this point about comparison and students in other classes who you may perceive as more intelligent or not as intelligent even, or whatever it might be, looks-wise. Does this play out on campus and in the classroom as well?
I think this is the thing. I used to be really bad with academic validation, so I sort of made a promise to myself when I did come to university that it would be my own individual journey. So it takes a lot more effort because you have to foster relationships with every single one of your lecturers so that you can have someone affirming you in that, yeah, you're doing well, or this is something that you can change, and then you can get that tailored feedback for yourself. Whereas if you're not as engaged with who's teaching you, or you're sort of just getting grades as your feedback, and the only time that you communicate with professors is when you're reading their feedback on essays, which can be quite harsh sometimes because they're like, what's this, question mark, and just like lots of scribbles over your work. It can feel quite impersonal. So it definitely does play out in an academic environment in that, you know, that comparison and then self-worth as well. But there are ways to go around it. You can really personalize your studies. It just takes a lot of planning and effort again, which, that's another thing.
Yeah, I think it's just so important to remember that, you know, a lot of these people that you are surrounded by, they come from way different backgrounds to me, for instance. A lot of them have come from way more privileged private school backgrounds, and I didn't come from that. And so I think it is quite unfair to compare yourself to people who have had a completely different life to you. Before, the comparison got really bad to the point where I was like, why aren't I smart enough? Why am I not this? Why am I not that? But I think I've altered my attitude towards that, and now I'm like, I can be like this. Or like, I can work hard and be like this, because you're always going to be surrounded by people who are quote unquote better than you. And I think your attitude towards that really matters. Yeah, and I've noticed that I'm a lot more successful now that I've changed my approach, and instead of perceiving all the insanely clever people around me, rather than perceiving that as like negative and constantly thinking, why am I not like this? Now I tell myself, I can be like that.
I agree. Like, I literally have a flashback now of my first lecture, and it was like a making history one. And my course convener, he sits us all down and he says, all of you are capable of getting a first in this degree. If you're able to get into the course, then you can get a first. And I was like, right, I can get a first. And he's always had that attitude of, it's just something that you can fix and work on, because if you can get in, then you're more than capable of, you know. And we sat our A-levels, I think you sat them as well, yeah. So it wasn't like a year where you're like anxious because it was teacher assessed grades. So you sat your A-levels, you know that you're capable of being able to get a first then if you can get in. But it also depends on who you have around you. The experience varies from course to course. I'm really lucky with my department, but I know it's been different for other people. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Go on.
Yes. Okay. Social media is able to connect people in ways you've never seen before, but issues associated with personal addiction, algorithm manipulation, and security weakness have made people more skeptical. When you consider all the factors, do you think social media has done more good or harm for society?
Personally, I would like, my ideal life is to not have social media, and I am phasing it out. So TikTok, everyone knows that I'm banned from TikTok. I'm not banned because of anything that I did. I'm just banned because I have terrible self-control when that app is on my phone. But ideally, if I didn't need WhatsApp or Instagram to connect with people, those are the two that I have now. If I didn't need it to actually stay in contact with people, I would love to not have it and to have like a physical camera and like have physical iPods and stuff. But all of those, that's a privilege though. You need to actually have a lot of money to be able to like buy vinyls. And like I realized in looking at deconnecting and online that it's always a certain demographic of people that have the privilege to be able to deconnect as well, like from the world. So it's always like the tech bros that are able to just go and like buy a villa in the middle of nowhere and disconnect because they have so many other people hired taking care of their life for them. So yeah, that's how I think it's done more harm than good, and I'd love to phase it out, but again, it's very difficult to do so nowadays.
Yeah.
What are the harms that you witness, have felt?
I mean, for like younger, I'm thinking back to when we were in high school, so secondary school, not high school, secondary school. Bullying, self-image, like, it impacts you so much. I mean, I think I had it as well, where it's like if you don't have sort of lots of siblings in the house, you don't have a life outside of that, and you're on your phone so much. I mean, like now, if I had kids, I would never like give them a phone that early anymore. But I get why. When I go back to like when I was 11, begging like my mum for a phone, like please, 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 like everyone's on Instagram and everyone's on. But like an 11-year-old just doesn't need to be on there. And I think I just consumed so much that it then changed the way that I saw myself and how happy I was in life. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You have any views on that as well?
I know that a lot of studies have shown that people who are on social media regularly, it increases feelings of anxiety and depression. And social media and our devices in general, they're designed to keep us in really reactive states. And I think that's definitely proven to be true. Going back to the cancel culture question, you just get so many people arguing on the internet for like a really long time. And I think that also has to do with the lack of face-to-face communication that social media has provided. I think, when social media initially started, it was mainly for the purpose of connecting with, friends or family.
Right.
But now it's kind of progressed into connecting with people who you don't really know or strangers. And when you're constantly communicating with strangers online through a purely online connection, you start to low-key dehumanize them, and like they become characters basically. And I think that's why people feel like they can say the most unhinged things to, and that's why they just project a lot of things onto just random people on the internet, because we dehumanize them and like we no longer see them as.
You'll like say one thing, like it'll be somebody posting about their day, like, oh, a day in the life, and then it's like the most horrible thing that you've seen under.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
People always have something bad to say. And I know that a lot of research has also shown that people are more drawn to being negative than positive. And social media is definitely shows that. So yeah, and also talking about how you understand why your mum didn't give you access to social media at that age. I do think there should be an age limit on social media.
I know.
It's terrible now.
It's just so dangerous as well for a child to be in that world, because there's this show that I used to watch where there was like a non-profit, and they worked against sort of predators and children online, and it was just the things that you would see on that show, and you think, I can't believe like children are on these apps, like they're so vulnerable to so much in the world, because I mean it's so easy to just find someone and send a message to them, and then it turns into real life situations which can get even more dangerous. So yeah.
And also, if you look at like the younger generation, I chat as if like I'm not part of that, but like
Gen Alpha.
A lot of them are really into the trends, like very much into the trends. And I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I really had to go through those really awkward phases of my life to actually discover what I like. But now that so many children are quick to hop on these trends, they don't end up figuring out their identity basically.
Right.
And so there becomes like a lack of diversity. And so I think it is ruining the originality of society basically. But I do think there can be pros, I guess, for children having access to social media. I think for me, it did make me a lot more open to people's ideas. And it does definitely enhance your own ideas, but it depends on how you take those ideas. Because one may see someone that disagrees with you on the internet, and instead they'll just like argue with them.
Social media, like relating to my experiences like a student, for my societies has been great. So we've been able to organise things a lot easier because you can just connect to the other UOL versions of your societies. Sports especially, like it's a really nice way to be able to keep up with my progress and then like sort of inspire people as well. And then we have obviously our main page, so your sort of society page can repost your stories too, which is nice. It has been positive in finding out about things as well, like Mahjong Society, which is super rogue that I would not have realised existed, but I think it just popped up on my Instagram feed and now we like try and regularly go. So it is a great way to find out about things, which is why I wouldn't get rid of it, not now anyway. Yeah.
A common issue that a lot of students face, especially in uni, is that they may feel alone, And so I think social media has really greatly helped that, because you get students who have done the years that you have done, and then they can, a lot of videos that I see are like about their experience and how they got through with that. And I think that really helps. I can't lie, during summer of last year, I went through like a flare-up of my chronic illness. And so balancing that and uni has been insanely difficult. And if I didn't have access to the videos of people who went through what I did, I feel like I would not have gone through it, because it was really rough. And seeing people on the other side of that really helped me get through it.
Thanks for tuning in to Campus Conversations. We hope you had as much fun listening as we did chatting. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and follow us on our various podcast streaming platforms linked in the bio. If you've got a story, question, or topic you'd like us to cover, the link is in the description. Until next time on Campus Conversations. I don't know.